He's a visionary who introduced the art of aquascaping in India. He's also been a pioneer and has introduced and educated thousands of enthusiasts into this wonderful hobby of aquascaping. He's also the one who's brought in some groundbreaking initiatives in this field. And he's the one who brought in the Great Indian Aquascaping Challenge to India and has taken these aquascapers to the world. Please join me in welcoming the founder of Still Water Aquatics and the co-founder of India's first tissue culture aquatic plant setup. And we are going to know more about that. Please join me in welcoming Adip Sajjan Raj to the Weekend Aquarist. Adip, welcome to the Weekend Aquarist. You're the first guest and I'm so proud to have you on this show. And, I'm looking forward to this engagement. Okay, so let's roll it now. Okay, so Adip, let's start by understanding, you've been in this hobby now for 30 years, I believe, yeah? How did it all start? Tell us the behind the scenes of Adip Sajjan Raj, because we know the Adip Sajjan Raj that we see, okay, and we've come to know of you over the past so many decades, and every time there's something new that is happening, it's something new innovation that you're bringing in. I think it's taking the level of the industry is slightly up, okay, and every time that's the progression. But what I would like to know is the man behind this, and that's what I want to kind of focus on. The incidents, the stories that made you who you are today, and during the journey that of these last 3 decades, what do you see? So we'll talk about all of that. Okay, sure. So welcome once again to the Weekend Aquarist.
Thank you, Amar. It's a pleasure to work with you once again.
Yeah,
and I like the logo, the Weekend Aquarist.
Yeah,
so it's a nice shirt. I like the way the font is. What font is that?
This is Brittany, I think. It's and I designed the logo myself on Canva. And I wanted to bring something from my past, Tropico Aqua, as a connection. So while the embroidery is not showing that, this is the beta fish that's there.
Right.
Okay. So we'll talk about that later. This is about you. So let's tell us about how did you start this journey into this hobby?
Okay. So basically, I think I've always had a love for animals. From my childhood. I think one of the early pets that I had was a dog. And what my mom told me, I don't remember the story though, is that I put my hand in the mouth of the dog, okay, and pull the tail. So what do you expect the dog to do? Bite, right? So the dog bit me, and I heard that, you could see a hole in my palm. It's not there. It's all clean now.
How old were you then?
Maybe 3 or something like that.
Okay.
The early days,
Okay.
3 or 4 maybe, something like that. So always had pets. I had turkeys, rabbits, bats, squirrels.
Bats?
Yes, all kinds of crazy things.
Okay.
So, fortunately I've had space to, keep these animals. Bangalore was different those days, and now is totally different. So I think with dabbling with so many of these, amazing animals, somehow as I, grew up, the bonding, you have an animal bond that you create, and then when the animal dies, you have the sheer, you lose that joy of, working with animals. So the kind of, ups and downs that you have with the pet, that kind of, got onto me quite deeply, I feel.
So why is that?
So I believe, when an animal is large, right, you're emotionally more connected to it. You're hugging it all the time, you're carrying it away. But with a creature that lives in the water, it's much lesser.
Okay.
So I felt that, of course there was a loss when you get attached to a fish or any other animal as a pet. But I believe that with many fish, it's still okay. You don't put your love into one object. You put your love into the universe.
Yeah.
So it's like the fish in the ocean, right? You can't just love one fish. You love all the fish there. So in an aquarium, there was so many fish out there. And it's okay. It's divided love. It's not like, single love.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of helped me to, maybe I feel, this is just thoughts, afterthoughts, which kind of kept me more focused on, aquariums and aquascaping as compared to all the rest of the animal kingdom, I would say.
But how old were you when you started moving towards fish and keeping?
I think
fish
in
as
early
pets?
days, I used to go play tennis.
Oh.
Right? My mom said, okay, go play tennis. It's a good game. So I was like, okay, fine. So the tennis was not the key. I used to go to catch guppies in the pond outside the tennis stadium, So that I think that's the early stage where, you should get these guppies and then put it in a glass bottle and, take care of it. These were like early days. I don't think the kids of this generation living the 21st century
They don't venture out that much.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
Those days there was plenty. You put a little piece of bread and then all of them come, easy to grab them. Gambusia, guppies, not so colorful.
Right.
But then for us it was like life. It's so nice to bring it home and then you see
Especially if they have babies later on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's so fun.
Yeah.
I bred this fish. Wow, amazing. So I think those are the early days when, I could actually, relate to where I started off this whole fish thing.
And when did you start seriously getting into, I think aquascaping would have come much later, but just keeping the aquariums, not just with the fish, when did you start getting plants into that?
So I think after my, basic schooling, that's after my 10th standard, I think I felt that I had an explosion of aquariums. So from maybe 1 or 2 aquariums became 50 aquariums.
50, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
So I had the aquariums on my dining table, in the kitchen, living room, everywhere. So it's like maybe the hottest aquarium home in Bangalore, maybe, those days. And it was really early, maybe 96 or something, when I finished my schooling, And this was the time I felt that there was a huge affinity to have all the fish in the world. I don't know how big the world was, but wanted to have all the fish in the world because it was so interesting, sitting and looking up at these fish, breeding these fish. So I think that's where I started. Then plants started coming into, somewhere there. The plants made the aquarium look a lot beautiful.
Right.
The fish loved it. And that ecosystem was like, wow.
But in those early days, saying by 96 and all, the kind of plants that were available to us as hobbyists were the basic ones.
Right.
I remember having Vallisneria and feeling great about that. What about you? What did you start with?
I think this was Vallisneria, Kabumbas. So, Bangalore was a little fortunate to have a little better plants, some crypticons, basic stuff, not very colorful. We didn't know how to make a carpet grow at that time.
Right.
Just a few people who used to get these plants from abroad and then, multiply it.
Right.
Then we get one plant and then, it's a precious plant.
Right.
It's like a $1 million plant. You put it there and then you watch it grow. You work with this whole, yeast-based CO2 system, which we read on, the old archives of some American website. So put these things together and then, put in yeast and sugar. All the sugar in the home was like going into this CO2 system. Then, that's how we, usually started off those days. Yeah.
You mentioned that you wanted to keep a variety of fish in those 50 tanks and all. What all have you kept in the starting days?
Oh man, that's like a long list. I think so many fish, man, so many fish. It's difficult to put a name to it. It's like so many of them.
Cichlids mainly, or
cichlids, tetras, barbs, goldfish, discus.
And did you guys used to have? I'm sure you must be into exchanging and trading and
kind of have all kinds of fish, shell dwellers. Name the fish. pretty much those days, every fish. I used to have people, I remember even once I had a guy come from Pakistan to get fish from me. Oh, yes. This guy was called Oasis Khan or something like that. I think he came to India on a Rotary exchange program or something like that. Then he came and he saw my fish. He's like, I want to take this fish back to Pakistan. I was like, okay, I'll pack it for you.
But those days, I think the airlines were also quite...
they were not like so strict like
They were not so strict and all.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of you going down to Mumbai and getting fish and then coming back. So
I think in my summer holidays, I used to, go by bus to Mumbai. My way back, because I wanted to bring fish, I used to get a airline ticket. And then, usually I was young, right? So I used to get the seat next to me empty and then keep the fish on the seat and bring it back below. This is the crazy days. Now you can't even imagine.
You can't do that. They don't let you take a bottle of water.
It's correct. Those days there's no terrorism. It's easier to...
So on that, you're talking about your education. I don't know how many of you know that Adip is a biomedical engineer. Did I get that right?
Right, that's right.
Tell us about that. And then how did you kind of, venture out further into this? Let's talk about that as well.
If I should dwell into that, I didn't want to do engineering, because I had some decent marks. I wanted to do something with fish. So I told my mom, I want to study something about fish because it's so passionate, right? But at that time, I went and did a course in Mumbai in CIFA just to understand, but I didn't feel the depth of knowledge there.
Correct.
It was just basic stuff.
Right.
And I felt I want to go a lot deeper.
Right.
And there was like nothing in India which kind of was teaching you about how to breed fish. And, I was most focused on breeding fish. Plants were not my cup of tea at that point of time. But more about learning about different types of breeding, how you kind of take care of live food and stuff like that. Because that was the problem that I had, to raise the young ones up. Breeding was easy, but how are you going to get these guys to, live and
grow and
So then after evaluating all the courses and, understanding, the mom's like, no, it's better you do engineering, get some formal education.
Okay.
So I was very reluctant. Then I said, okay, fine. This is a little bit of electronics.
Okay.
So I got in there. I liked electronics basically.
Okay.
So I said, okay, it's to do with the human body and, electronics.
So once you completed your engineering, then what happened?
I got recruited into a company immediately before I finished my engineering because I did a good project to do with the brain mapping and stuff like that. So did a little bit of forensic science work, brain mapping. So it's like a very serious detective work kind of thing, with electronics.
Right.
And I worked for about 2 years. But I think the water was drawing me.
Absolutely.
Come home.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So finally I felt the calling for the water, the fish was much more than the job. Okay. You've been in a corporate job, how it is,
That's why I said absolutely, because I can relate to what you would have gone through. Right. Yeah. So then after that, then you...
So after that was deep dive into the ocean.
Okay.
So I started from scratch. I didn't have a huge capital, to work with.
When did you start Still Water Aquatics?
Still Water Aquatics, I believe, started in 2006. So I was working, and then I got one of these German companies to give me a project to keep fish alive. That's it. And they wanted a company because they had to give a purchase order.
No.
So I had to think of a name in like 24 hours and give them a letterhead.
Right.
They had the purchase order ready without a name. Work.
Right.
So that's how I, said, okay.
So one of the things that, I was always curious to know, and somehow I don't know how I've never asked you this, but I'm sure it must be on the minds of all the young enthusiasts and all who look at the Still Water Aquatics logo and they see a marine fish over there.
Yes.
Okay. So the Still Water Aquatics, but there is a marine fish over there. So did you kind of just pick that up and also said, okay, let me just make a letterhead and send it?
In those days, I didn't have so much of design skill.
Right.
So there was a friend who said, okay, let's put something together. And of course, I spoke to this friend called Girish, those days. And he said, okay, let's wrap something together. What's the most colorful fish we have?
Okay.
It has to be impressive. So whatever you found a Moorish idol there, and then like plonk, okay, done. Some
but I think it's now over the years become more of an identity itself. So I think that's how things work out. You never know when you started, but when you look back, it all starts to connect. How did your association, when did you come to know about somebody called Takashi Amano?
I think the early entry of internet into India, we were on VSNL. I think you remember.
Yeah, the dial-up days.
Yes. So you had to dial up
like a fax tone and then
goes, and say, if you connect, great. Otherwise, there's nothing happening. So I think those days, the early days when we had to dial up pictures. I think early pictures of Amano's work started coming out by I think somebody. I think on the internet, Google is not a big thing. I think Yahoo
was there before that. Yes.
So I think somewhere there I saw a few pictures, and then we had some friends in we had a club in Bangalore called Ask, actually.
Ask, okay.
Yeah, it was called Aquarist Society of Karnataka.
Right.
So we had a nice group there, if I remember. They were like my mentors.
I think the Aquarist Society of Karnataka is also, at least at that time, I remember had the highest number of members, Aquarist, about 500
It was a
plus.
club. It was a club. This was a very old club.
Okay.
Doesn't exist today.
Okay.
But it was a very old club where, all these oldies used to meet up and talk fish. So we would meet up in Bangalore in Kavan Park.
Okay.
And then Sunday was the time. So after church, I used to go, to the club there, and then we talk fish.
Right.
Just fish, pure fish.
Right.
So, and people started exchanging fish and stuff like that. So this is a place where we had a few people who had, like marine engineers and people who could afford at that time, to go to the US or maybe mail order books.
Right.
So when we saw the books we used to look at these books with somebody else. We couldn't afford those books those days.
Right.
When the first books of Amano came out, I think early 95, 96 is 92, 93 is when Amano wrote these books. But then it started coming into the world much later.
2 years later on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those books were like mind-blowing. No, when you see a carpet of glossostigma, and I was like, how in the world is he doing this? It's impossible. Because we could never get those plants to grow that way. So when looking at these pictures and looking online, it's just more like a mystery. What is this man doing? What is his secret? So because when you're like, it's so surreal.
Right.
It just doesn't look real. And the fish is like, magnified in that image. It looks
they're natural environments and
I'm like, it's like a hot girl walking by, everyone's looking there. So all of us are like, looking at it, just like that, we couldn't get that picture out of our mind.
Right.
And I was so obsessed. I'm like, how in the world he's doing it? Because Japan is far, far away.
Right.
And India is like, third world country at that point of time. We're not flourishing like today.
Correct.
And I wanted to get to the root of that.
So how did you reach out to him?
Oh, it's a long, long story. We need more time for that.
We've got time. I'd like to know all this. How did you reach out to him?
So I think first I started working with plants. We used to get plants from Singapore because I used to deal with fish from Singapore. So through, again, Mumbai connections, I had Gary and Sanjay D'Souza and all these people who kind of, helped me. Then connected with Ivan Sia, who was like a famous disc breeder there. And then, started going to Singapore first. I need some exposure, right? So went to Singapore a couple of times. It was very fascinating to see the kind of fish they had. The kind of, even the kind of tubey fix they have was like ultimate. So, built on a relationship with them till I could, get to see that we had some good fish in India by the time. And then was like dabbling with plants. So, Ivan Sia kind of exported plants from there to India. And then we got some plants and I was looking at the plants and like, wow. Just plants and pots, just basic stuff.
Yeah.
Was because fascinating. And then I got in touch with him and told him that, maybe you can send us one bag of Amazonia to India.
Yeah.
Just one bag. It's expensive. I think about $10,000 something. It came to
10,000.
by the time it landed, because it came with the fish and stuff like that,
Wow.
So when we got this one bag into our first bag of
That's
soil,
black gold.
yes, came to India, and I had like 3 or 4 people shared that bag. I kept a little bit, like maybe 1 or 2 kilograms, and then it got broken up,
Right.
because it was like gold.
Right. Absolutely.
So that was the early time that, I think that, we got something ADA, and we're like, wow, this is like ADA.
Which year would this been?
I think 2005 sometime, 2004, 2005 sometime.
Okay. And you reached out to Amano when?
2006.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So, I don't know, it just happened that, I met a friend, and then I was discussing some business with him, and he was like, I was already having this fish business with me, because doing projects and raining fish and
So
selling.
you didn't have a store as such, or
I was
you
from
had
home, working from home.
Okay.
And then he's like, I was telling him, we're just discussing what my dreams are. So I was telling him, I need to get to this man. He said, why don't you send out a mail? So showed him, he was doing business with somebody else, some other countries. So he said, type out the mail and show it to me. So I typed out the mail, showed it to him. Then he's like, okay, it's good to go. Fill it out. Let's see what happens. So sent this entire mail with, saying that this is my background and this is what I want to do. I would be interested in doing business with Takashi Amano, whatever, ADA, and then sent the mail out. I think a couple of days later, we got a reply saying, give us a business plan. I didn't know what a business plan is at that point of time. Not been to business school,
Yeah.
So I had to take friends' help and, kind of build a business plan, show them what India is, and then show them what
The potential and
potential. Because very early days, because
Right.
in those days we'd be using, laterite and construction sand, acid wash and use.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything in India at that
Correct.
point of time, like
Correct.
I'm saying a fertile soil to grow plant.
Correct.
And they were like, okay, we can ship to you. But meanwhile, I had I was trying to work with a distributor in Singapore to buy into India. So I don't know what happened there. So I actually signed an agreement with the distributor in Singapore to buy ADA products into India. But somehow Amano got to know about this and Amano got to know my name.
Okay.
So the Singapore guys were after me like, didn't you get in touch with Amano? This is even before I got in touch with Amano, to be honest with you. And Singapore guys are big. I was looking up to them because they were like my big brothers. They were
Correct.
working with Amano for
So
5 or
many
6 years.
Yeah.
And somehow Amano got to know this, and the Singapore guys were like a little furious. How does Amano know you? I said, I don't know. I've not even spoken to Amano as yet. I don't know who Amano is.
So how did Amano come to know?
I don't know. But then Singapore guys told me that Amano knows me, sir.
And then you wrote to Amano after that.
I wrote to the ADA company, right? And after that, and then they were like, so I shared this agreement. I had a 6-year agreement and then didn't do any business with them, but then kind of, worked with ADA directly and then, got the first container into India. And then I wanted to bring Amano into India.
So the container, before I go to Amano, so the first container came in what, 2007?
I think so.
Okay.
Around that time, early 2006 end, I think sometime.
And then what? Everybody rushed and opened the container.
It's quite a challenge. I didn't get my right agent, and he didn't know what he was doing. And then I had to go there, and each product had to be, kind of classified.
Especially if you've got food in it. And then
I don't know what was there. Yeah, so much of process.
Right.
Those days was much lesser, but still there was so much process. And it took a toll. I lost a lot of money there, with the whole process delay. And
I'm
stuff.
sure it can
But
relate.
I think people really accepted the product. Well, there was a huge queue, and I did a workshop at home. All was at my home, set up at home, and India was very open to ADA. They were like, wow, this is amazing. And at that point, of course, the hobby was growing. And I felt that Amano is to come to India. So I discussed with my friends in IAH and told them that, we need to see if we can get Amano to India, because nothing better than that. Him coming here and teaching the whole thing. But when I sent a mail, then, Amano was like, I don't know who you are. I've never met you.
Yeah.
You come to Japan. So I went to Japan. Met the man. Shook hands with him. I was like, oh, big man. Yeah, your hands. It was like mind-blowing.
Starstruck.
Yeah, you just like, you don't know what to do. What to speak. You don't know you understand English or not.
How was Amano like? Tell us a little bit about him as well.
So initially he was very nice. Very nice. You like, look at the beautiful aquariums there, and there's like crazy aquariums, those days to look at those ultimate 80 aquariums was like, what do you see in the books? You're seeing in real life, fish moving there. No, not photoshopped. It's real fish moving there, right? So it was like being in heaven types. Seeing that amazing scenery there, which is crystal clear. So I think that was the first moment that I was like, I felt like I was in love. with the whole space there in Japan and stuff like that. I didn't know their culture. I didn't know the language. I didn't know anything there.
Do you speak Japanese now?
I can understand. Not a little bit, not too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you do a workshop under him that time, as in when you went there?
Amano was like, the first meeting happened, I think, and then Amano, we had a workshop in Japan. No, before that Amano came to India.
Oh, he came to India?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
2009, Amano was in India.
Bangalore.
Yes, we did a huge
Sunil Mendonza is a common friend and is a respected hobbyist, also keeps sharing it, and I feel so jealous every time he shows me.
So this was like, we planned out the whole thing. We got the materials for Amano, and then, he set up a 90p aquarium in Bangalore, and it was not easy. We're selling tickets those days for 3,500 rupees. I remember Mayur and me went and threatened a few people. Bloody hell, buy the ticket now. I'll bash you up. Mayur was like, ready, yes, I'll bash him after you. So because people didn't understand who Amano was.
Right.
Today those people come and like thank us. Like, you made it happen, yaar. Otherwise I've never met Amano in my life.
Yeah.
The 3,000 rupees is still a lot of money because we had to take care of
those days, definitely. Yeah.
In 2007.
Yeah.
So, we sold, I think, about 350 tickets those days. So it was a nice event, and Amano did a great workshop. He loved India. He came home. He had my mother's, curry and stuff like that. So he loved spices. So we went to the jungle in, Bandipur and Kabini and all that. So he wanted to see the tiger, which I think didn't happen. So
I'm sure the tiger must have seen him.
Yeah, I guess so. He got a lot of pictures, and he wanted to. He had so many ideas. He's into many things. Amano was into so many things. He's visionary. What he created is still, driving us today.
Right.
Yeah, it's happening. This is all happening because of a man like Amano who's connected people from around the world.
Right.
Now I have friends from every country, I think. Just because what's binding us is one nature aquarium. Yeah, the aquarium hobby is putting all of us together, which is so nice.
Yeah.
Adip, tell us a little bit more about your mentorship or Amano's mentorship to you. About start from the workshop.
See, if I'll tell you, I had a chance to work with Amano for about 10 years. Not a long stretch. Short learnings. And I feel that, the way you learn from a Japanese is very different from what we learn in school today or learn in India. They're very meticulous about everything they do. They strive for perfection. So I think, working with the Japanese has changed me a lot. Before, I used to not look at that level of perfection. I didn't know what is that perfection.
Right.
But working with the Japanese, team, Amano and his team, right? Amano has perfected the team. And then I work a lot with the team and of course Amano, Mr. Amano also. So that kind of changed my thinking. And many times along the way, even this whole plant journey, so many times I felt it's too much. Let's give up. That, thought keeps coming to the brain and saying like, you're pushing too much, dude. It's not going to happen. What you're trying to do, you can't change India. But anything that thing comes in, I have another side saying like, push a little more to be done. It's that good and bad factor, both coming from both sides.
Right.
And when you push and gets done right, you have the innovation. You asked me, earlier, where's the innovation coming from?
Right.
Pushing hard. You've seen the team. You've seen the team. You've been to the lab, the plants.
Yes.
You've seen the kind of stuff they're doing.
Right.
They're not rocket scientists. They're not people working in NASA. But the stuff they're doing is beyond the world.
Right.
And it's all Indian ideas. India has got a lot of ideas, but they don't know the way to channelize it.
Right.
So if the idea is channelized and somebody to help them mentor it, I think we can grow great places in India.
You've already, put India on the map as far as, the aquatic plants are concerned, okay? This is a time when you were looking to get some plants from Singapore and were happy when you got one plant inside. Today, you are exporting, 300 varieties that you are making. And tell us a little bit about that as well.
So, I traveled to a few countries, just for business, for, meeting friends, so many things. So whenever I used to go to Singapore, I used to go and see, what beautiful plants do they have? What can I take back to India? Now when I go to Singapore, I'm seeing my plants there. There's not even one new plant. They're like, no, there's no new plant. We don't have anything new. But India, we have so much out there. So I have my lineup for 2027 already ready.
Wow.
So that's how we are excited. Now, India has got so many new things now that the rest of the world doesn't have. And I used to be like this guy those days,
Right.
God's grace, we've come this far, And there's been people of India who are supporting this journey, which is very nice.
Right.
We need the support. We need the flow. I can't just do business only with the Japanese. I'm an Indian finally. I need to work with my, brotherhood here.
Right.
So it's a balance of, things.
Yeah, so I'm at one side being an Indian, I'm really proud to see a made in India story going across the world. Today, you started off by bringing in ADA to India, and now ADA is buying your plants or taking your plants to the world. Tell us a little bit about that also. I mean, how did you achieve that? I'm sure they would have seen the quality of plants that are coming in and they've supported you along the way.